What's up everyone, it's a Knife Style here, and today I'm going to be doing my full review on the Spyderco Manix 2, and this is the version in CTS XHP with these kind of tannish, greenish G10 handles, and this was either a sprint run or a distributor exclusive a while back. I'm not sure which one it was, but I actually picked it up on the secondary market. I'm not sure if this one is very hard to find or not, but I just saw one up for $150 and I was looking for a Manix, so I bought it. And I wanted to try out XHP, and so it kind of worked out, and I'm glad I was able to pick this one up. But honestly, this is not my favorite color configuration. I just think it looks a little bit odd. I don't really care that much about how my knives look, but this is not the best looking knife in the world. Let me throw up a little bit of some size comparisons before we get more into this video. I'll just talk about like the anatomy of how this knife is built up of. So it's got a CTS XHP blade, like I already said, G10 handles. It was designed by Eric Glesser. It is made in the Golden, Colorado factory. It's got a two-way reversible tip-up pocket clip. It's just the standard Spyderco spoon clip. And is that everything? Oh yeah, it uses the ball lock, or the ball bearing lock from Spyderco, which I'm a big fan of, and I'll talk about it a little bit more. And the last size comparison, I guess this is kind of a spoiler alert for the review, but yeah, this review is going to be positive because I actually went out and bought a Manix 2 lightweight after having this. They look different because of my little size, that I guess visual, what's the term for it? Optical illusion, just because my what I'm filming on is tilted. But it's one of those things where I like the Manix a lot, and so I actually bought another one. But let's talk about why I like the Manix. So a little bit more on the looks of this. Just one more thing I want to touch on. These G10 scales, they do kind of stain with blue jeans. Like, I carried this in jeans. I don't know if they're freshly washed, or maybe they haven't been washed in a while. I don't know. But I'd carry it for like a couple days, and then I noticed kind of some blue streaks on here, and I couldn't get that off with rubbing alcohol, so I used a magic eraser, and that seemed to work good. And so yeah, that's that. I think a lot of people already know that with light colored G10, but I guess it's a thing with this one. For the blade finish, it is just a satin finish, and I feel like it looks really good on this XHP. I have a couple, like a hairline scratch or two in this. I don't think they're going to show up on camera. I can really only see them in good lighting, but that's one of those things that I'm not the biggest fan of, a satin finish, just because I feel like I'm just mainly cutting cardboard and plastics with this knife, and I'm not doing anything crazy, but scratches do tend to show up. Even though they're just very minor, it's not that I'm concerned with the like resale value of this thing, because I'm obviously using it a bunch and not really caring about that, and I'm happy with my purchase. But it's just one of those things where I like a stonewash finish because it hides those scratches very well. And a lot of my Chris Reeve knives I've used more than any of my Spydercos, or not all of my Spydercos, but some of my Chris Reeve knives I've used more than some of my Spydercos that are all scratched up. So it's one of those things where that's why I prefer a stonewash finish, because they look good with use, and they don't show as much wear. Not that, okay, it's one of those things where I like to see a knife with wear, but it's that you're kind of getting over that hump a little bit, you know, like with my Yale Bradley 2, this has gotten a bunch of scratches on it. I don't know if those will show up either, but it looks good, and I'm happy with it, and I like how it looks. But when it's just one or two hairline scratches, it's not the best looking thing. Anyway, let's move on, talking about the blade of this. So CTS XHP, this was a steel that I wanted to try, and I had a feeling that I was going to really like it, and turns out I really do. A bunch of people that I follow and respect in the knife world have really enjoyed XHP, and it's stainless. I've heard good things about the edge retention, and it just seems like an all-around great steel. Honestly, I probably wouldn't be able to tell a difference that much between something like this and maybe CPM 154, 154 CM, or S30V, but I like all those steels. They're all really good, and I've really enjoyed this. So for sharpening, what I like to do when I get a new steel is I kind of like to try out different edges or different combinations that I can do. So when I first got this, I bought this used, and I believe the person who I bought it from Sharpening on a KME. It kind of looked like that, maybe a landscape edge, but it just looked like a flat edge, flatter than mine. And so I basically wiped that edge off just because I wanted my own edge on there, and I took it to a full mirror polish. I have a picture on my Instagram kind of showing that off. It was a very bright polish, and this really sharpened up well when I did that. But I did notice that it did perform very well with a mirror polish, but I kind of got off a mirror polish kick a little bit just because I realized that it's not that I need a very toothy edge, but I enjoy a toothy edge more, and I strop my knives enough that I don't need the extra sharpness that a mirror polish gives you. So it's one of those things that it does take a very good mirror polish, but I kind of like to keep it at a lower grit. So the edge I have on this is, I basically took it from that mirror polish and then sharpened it on a 1000 grit Shapton Pro Stone, and I think that it looks pretty good. When you're just looking at it on camera, you can see some kind of shadows in it, but you can definitely see the grit pattern if I don't think that's going to show up. But overall, I'm a fan of this edge. It sharpens up very well. The grind from the factory from Spyderco, it looks a little bit kind of deeper on this side than on this side, and also on my other Manix. I'm kind of used to Spyderco's grinds just being off, but this one is also kind of the same thing, if you can see that right there. So it's one of those things where, yes, I would like Spyderco to fix their grinds, but it's to the point now where if you know I'm buying a Spyderco, I literally have it in my head, all right, this grind's gonna be off. Is this price still worth it? So more on the blade for the edge geometry. This is my second take of the video, so I already measured it. It's 20 thousandths on the dot. The stock thickness is about 120 thousandths, so very average stock thickness and thinness behind the edge from a Golden Colorado Spyderco. Would I like this to be thinner? Yes, I would. I just prefer to use knives that are thinner behind the edge, and I feel like I don't need a knife that's 20 thousandths behind the edge, because that is honestly for me kind of like a hard use blade geometry, and usually when I use my knives for hard use, it's hard use cutting, and so I like knives that are thinner behind the edge. But one thing I want to address is I feel like looking back at some of my videos recently, it seems like I don't like knives at all that are just 20 thousandths behind the edge or just a little bit thicker like that. And the truth is, I'm fine using knives like this. I actually use them a lot just because I own a lot of Spydercos that are in that 20 thousandths range. But it's one of those things where I feel like I have to strop and sharpen them a little bit more. It's not like they're dulling faster, but for example, the Gale Bradley 2, this thing is 9 thousandths behind the edge with a hollow grind. I honestly don't know if this thing is even that sharp. It doesn't even feel that sharp. I doubt it will. Yeah, this thing won't even shave my hair, and usually I'd strop a knife after that, or maybe I'd even hone it on a stone. But it's one of those things where it's so thin behind the edge, it just passes through materials so well. This one is just not as good as that. So I personally enjoy sharpening, enjoy stropping, and it's not really that much of a burden for me to do it. And so that's why I'm fine with carrying knives thicker than this, because I don't feel like I notice as much like bad cutting when it gets into that 25 and up, 25 thousandths and up range. That's when I notice it being harder to pass through materials. But 20 thousandths, it's okay. Would I like it to be thinner? Yes, but since I enjoy sharpening and stropping, and I can keep it pretty much at a razor sharp edge every time I use it, I'm fine with it. So that, I think that, oh wait, no, I got one more thing to talk about with the blade. That is the blade shape, and I really like this blade shape. One of my favorites. And Spyderco, I feel like every blade shape they do is good, but this blade shape actually reminds me of the Insingo, and you might be confused because they don't look alike at all, but just look at the actual cutting edge of them. So what you'll see on this one is there is belly towards the base, and then kind of flat from about here towards the tip. So that is interesting. Usually on a knife you'll see like flat at the base. Oh, I just hit my tripod. Flat at the base and then belly towards the tip, kind of just like your standard drop point blade. As you see with the Insingo, it also has belly towards the base and flat towards the tip. So why is that good? Well, for me, I do a bunch of cardboard cutting, And a lot of times I've gotten in a habit of cutting cardboard of starting at the very base. The reason I got in the habit of that is because knives like this with a choil, I really like sharpening choils, I find them useful, but stuff will get caught in there if you're not careful. If you're just like kind of pushing through like that, stuff will get caught in there and it's kind of annoying. So I just start at the base and work my way like that. So it's just kind of a habit that I have. Now this, why that belly is good, because when you start at the base and work your way through, it's almost like that belly kind of hooks into the cardboard and gets you a little bit more power behind your cut. Is it one of those things that I'm really gonna notice all that much? No, but I do like the concept of it, and I feel like this thing, it does make it a little bit of a better cutter. Also, the tip on this is pretty low, so that is basically how high I have to raise my wrist off the table in order to get access to the tip, and so it's very nice. So this blade reminds me a little bit of the Insingo more than other Spyderco blade shapes do, and I really like it. I just think it's a great and very functional blade on this thing. So let's talk about the fit and finish and lockup. I'll talk about this lock a little bit more because I really like it, but the fit and finish, looks to be slightly off center to the left. Nothing that really bothers me all that much, but I see why it would bother some people. I got no blade play, no lock rock, and the action, actually I won't talk about that yet, but it's a good action. For this lock, why I like it, the ceramic ball lock, it's just really cool because I feel like a lot of times with locking mechanisms kind of in the knife world, it's almost a trade-off. It's kind of a trade-off between maybe ease of manipulating it and strength, but this is a lock that does both very well. Now, before I get into this, I just want to make it clear that I don't care that much about lock strength, as long as it won't fail with heavy hand pressure, maybe some light spine wax, and it just has a secure lock. I don't really care at all, and so I just want to say that because I don't want to seem like one of those people that needs a knife to be stronger than a liner lock or something. But anyway, the reason I like this lock is because it seems like there's a lot of locks out there, kind of like I don't know, I feel like all locks, if they're done well, they are strong locks, so I don't want to say that I have any weak locks, but the back lock is a lock that is strong, but it's not the most easy to operate. Now, personally, I love back locks. They're simple, they're effective, and they have 100% stood the test of time. And actually, the first Manix was a back lock, which is pretty cool. But the reason that I feel like it's kind of a trade-off is because, you know, this is a very strong and very good locking mechanism, but it's not the easiest to operate. And a lot of them, you have to use two hands. This one, it's very strong. It's got the strength of an axis lock, but the thing that makes it really good is it has a coil spring in here, and the axis lock uses omega springs. And a big issue with it, I've never had it happen to me on my Griptilian, but omega springs can break, and so technically the life on it isn't the best. And I think that Benchmade, they won't just send you out omega springs. I don't know why, but you can buy them on eBay or something. It's one of those things where I really like this locking mechanism. It's easy to operate, open one hand and close. You could honestly play with this knife and fidget with it. I don't really do that much, but it's also very strong, and I think that's cool. I just like it. And sometimes this lock is just fun to look at just because it's kind of got this stop bar here, which I think is cool, and you can see the lock and pretty much all of it kind of happens. So this tang right here, this square tang is going to hit this square lock bar. I'll just show you, as you can see here in the lock position, and that's keeping the blade from moving this way. But the thing keeping the blade from moving down is basically you're going up, and then you see that opening right there. As soon as that goes down far, this kicks into there, so you're going to have to push this down while this is pushing back up against this, which is pushing down on it. That made no sense, but overall, this is a very strong locking mechanism. It's kind of cool to look at, and it's also very easy to operate. There is a little bit of lock stick that I still haven't gotten out. You can just hear it as it's closing. I'll hold the blade so it doesn't. There's just a little bit of lock stick on there. I'm not opposed to it. When I first got this, it was kind of hard to operate. It could have just been because I was trying to break it in a little bit more, and it wasn't the easiest to pull down. But what I did is I basically just set this up overnight kind of laying like this, or I guess so you guys can see it laying like this, just so I'm bending in that coil spring and trying to break it in a little bit. I did the same thing with my Manix 2 lightweight, and after probably a week, it felt a lot better and easy to operate. So overall, my thoughts is I really like this ball lock locking mechanism. I'd like to see Spyderco use it a lot more, just because it's not that I dislike the compression lock. I feel like it's a very good lock design, a very good idea, but a lot of times it does prove to be a hot spot in ergonomics, while this one really isn't. So I would like to see Spyderco use this more, because it's just a great lock and I really like it. It's very cool how it's very strong, but also very easy to operate. So let's move on to the ergonomics of the Manix, and this is also very positive. I like these ergos a lot more than the PM2, but what I like about these ergos is it surprised me, honestly, because as you can see, the ergonomic lines of this are not very simple. I like to see knives kind of like the Sabenza almost, where there's just straight right here, and then there's just a small finger groove, and then straight. Very simple ergonomic lines. So what you can do is you can kind of do all kinds of grips with the Sabenza. It can fit all different kinds of hand sizes, but this one doesn't really do that. You got two pretty defined finger grooves and then a little bit of a wavy thing on the back. But what I like about this is it's very good in all the main grips that I use it for. This hammer grip, it fits all my fingers perfectly and is very useful. And probably my favorite grip with the Manix is a little bit of a weirder grip. It's almost like, I always talk about this pinch grip, how I love to do it. And the pinch grip is one of my favorites, basically where I put my thumb on the pivot and then just kind of go like this. You can do a lot of functional cuts like that, and I use it a whole lot. But what I like about the Manix is it's a very wide knife in this way, and so it's kind of, I can't wrap my finger all the way up there. So what I do is I just kind of take it in like this hammer grip, but I put my thumb like that, and I feel like I can still get cuts like this, but also do a lot more heavy duty cuts like a little hammer grip. So I use that a bunch. I think it's very useful, and I've enjoyed using it. One other thing I like about the Manix is it doesn't have a very big thumb ramp sticking out on top, and so you can put your thumb here all the way up here, or just keep it back here if you want to. Knives like the PM2, it seems like you're kind of trapped into this area and your thumb is kind of locked up back here. So overall, I'm a fan of the Manix ergonomics, but that doesn't mean there's anything that there are some bad things. I guess that's what I'm trying to say with the Manix 2 Ergo. So some kind of things that I don't really get is the jimping. Personally, this jimping back here, I don't think it's necessary, because honestly, look how defined these finger grooves are. You're not going to be moving up on this knife at all, and especially in this forward grip, you got some jimping up here as well, so I don't see an issue with that. And let's say you have it like this, you stab into a tree really hard, there's a chance that maybe your pointer finger will slide up, but definitely not your middle finger, just because it's such a high ramp right there. It's just, and there's also jimping there, so that's a lot of area to cover. So I don't really think this is all that necessary. But one thing about that is when I'm choked up, really it's just my pinky kind of touching that. And a lot of times when I'm doing a cut choked up in this hammer grip, I am forward like this, and most of the pressure to my cut is kind of within this area of my hand. And so the pinky really isn't that much of a problem to me. There also is some jimping right here. That isn't very sharp, so I honestly don't notice it in use, but I don't really think it needs to be there. Another thing that I'm not the biggest fan of with the Manix 2 ergonomics is it kind of swoops up like this and then goes down like that, kind of like what you see on the Gale Bradley 2. And what that does is I do a cardboard cut ergonomics test, and it's not a very fair test because every single knife hurts my hand, except the Sabenza doesn't hurt it that much. But what it does is I'll grab 6 layers of cardboard or something and just I'm pushing as hard as I possibly can through it. And basically you will 100% find any ergonomic issue with the knife. And so what happens is since this isn't flat, this little incline here is sitting in your hand, and then this whole dip down is it. And so what that does is when this pressure comes back in the cardboard and I'm trying to push it forward, but it's coming back, this spot right here is digging right into this part in my hand, and that basically kind of makes a sore spot or kind of a hot spot. But keep in mind, that's cutting 6 or 7 layers of cardboard at a time, and honestly, the max amount of cardboard I'd probably cut is 2 layers, maybe 3 if I'm just feeling a little bit edgy. But it's one of those things where that's not that big of a problem, but it still is a thing. One thing that I like to see on the Manix, I feel like this knife is just kind of asking for contoured scales. I mean, it's got a nice chamfer going all the way around, which I like, just because on knives like the PM2, it's almost just like they're blocks of G10, but they are flat scales, and I see why Spyderco didn't do it, because it would drive the price up. You know, you're using a lot more G10, and it does take some more machining to go into contouring of the scales, but I feel like if this thing was contoured, it would be so hand-filling and just extremely comfortable. But this would be an absolute chunk in the pocket if it was contoured. And I guess that brings me to the carry of this. This is a very wide knife, to the point that I carry this in jeans. I was completely fine with it. All I carry is this, and then this in my wallet in my main pocket, and also my Spyderco Dragonfly, which is in my 5th pocket. But just like, look at how wide this thing is compared to like a Victorinox. I kind of want to get a measurement on this. It's going to be a weird measurement. But I'm just going to measure from like, I'll measure from like, this is not going to be accurate, but I'll just measure like this. See how wide it is. So 1.75 inches in width in the pocket. That is very wide. It's going to take up a bunch of room. And I've seen people actually not carry the Manix just because they say that it takes up too much room in their pocket. Personally, for me, I don't really have an issue with that. Maybe I just have big pockets, but keep that in mind. You might want to just be ready of that. If you know you're used to carrying a Benchmade 940, this is going to take up a whole lot more room. For the pocket clip, I feel like Spyderco's wire clip, it gets too much hate than it deserves, and that's probably an unpopular opinion, just because people, it's like, well, I'm buying a Spyderco, might as well buy a Lynch clip. And Lynch clips are cool, I like them, but I don't think that they're necessary, especially on a knife like this, because this is about as deep as carry as they could go, and they did it. They made the lanyard hole secondary to the pocket clip, which I like, and so it carries deep, it carries good, it gives you a little bit to grab onto. The Spyderco wire clip has good retention on it too, and it is almost like never a hot spot, which I think is kind of amazing, because I feel like a lot of clips out there, it depends on the knife. Like if the same company uses the same clip every single time, you know, maybe they have a smaller knife and the clip's a hot spot, and a bigger knife and it's not a hot spot. I feel like Spyderco does a good job with not having the standard spoon clip as being a hot spot. Sometimes the wire clip is, but look at the Spyderco Military. It's not really the exact same clip, but it's got the same design features. It's just tipped down, and it's a little bit curved just because it goes along with the lines of the Military. But this is a tipped down clip, and I literally put my hand on top of this thing, squeezing down as hard as I can, and I honestly cannot feel that clip in my hand at all. So I think it's saying something that these Spyderco clips are not hot spots. They don't stick up a bunch, and they really don't provide me any discomfort in use. So overall with carry, this knife, it's a full-size knife. It's going to carry like a full-size knife. It's pretty wide in the pocket, and it's decently heavy. So I would suggest if you need something lighter, go with the Manix 2 Lightweight. I will do my review on this soon. But overall, it hasn't really proved that much of an issue for me carrying it in jeans. But I bet that when it comes to summer times and I'm carrying lighter weight, or I'm wearing lighter weight clothes, I'm going to gravitate to more towards some lightweight Spyderco models and not big models like this. So let's talk about the action a little bit. The action's good. I have no issues with it. It's a very big spider hole on this, so you can do a lot of different things with it. You can Spidey flick it. It drops after I disengage that lock. Pretty smooth action. You can do the whole, there it is, like that. One thing that I like about the lock on the Manix 2 and the Manix 2 Lightweight, both of mine, is the detent is stronger than most Axis locks. I'm not going to be able to show this on camera, but here is my Griptilian. Let me just show you guys. I'm going to try and flick this out. I don't really have much room, but there, I was able to just flick it out with hand pressure, and really Axis locks, or at least this one, it's not hard to do at all. And I'm just doing this off camera, but I can flick it out, just pretty much completely open it, just moving my wrist like this. This one, I cannot really do that at all. Even with, I'll do hard pressure off camera. I know you guys can't see this, but yeah, I'm really moving that knife really hard and trying to flick that thing out, and it's just not coming out. Now, the shake test, I think is one of the dumbest tests I've ever seen, but it is kind of cool to see that, you know, it's not as, this spring here, this coil spring is not kind of as wimpy as Omega spring. So I really like this lock. The action's very good. If you're gonna play with a knife, I mean, this knife would be fun to play with, I guess. But I'm fine with this action. I like it because I can easily pull this out, do a cut, close it, put it back in my pocket really fast. And I kind of do that more than I thought I would in an everyday use, just because sometimes I don't want to have an open knife, you know, maybe putting me in danger, because a lot of times after I cut something, I got to do something with what I cut pretty fast. So anyway, on to the value. So for $150, my price, you can look at the price on Blade HQ and see if the basic stock version is good enough for you. But $150 for this, I'm 100% happy with that price, and I thought it was very good, especially for PM2s being about $160. I'm a lot more happy with this one than I would be just buying another PM2, because I got XHP, G10, a locking mechanism that I really like, made in America, good pocket clip. It isn't the thinnest behind the edge, but it still works. It's got a great blade shape. The ergonomics are comfortable. I really like the Manix. One of my favorite Spydercos. And that just reminded me on a video I need to do. I need to do a video ranking all of my Spydercos. That will be a very fun one. But anyway, that's going to do it for the video. Thank you guys for watching. Sorry this one went a little bit long, but don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you're new. And I'll see you guys in the next one.